claims made by him. It's a chap called Derek Dixon, and it's a $260 million lawsuit.
They go, oh, sorry, toxic brand, gonna step away from you, even though they're the ones.
This video peels back a story that went from fairy tale refuge to a courtroom chessboard, where the man who once sheltered Harry and Meghan may now hold the legal key to rewriting how the world remembers their exit from the royal family. Over the next 11 minutes, I'll walk you through how Tyler Perry reportedly became family to the Sussexes, the lawsuit that changed everything, a secrecy clause that could flip the narrative, the PR scramble that followed, and the real stakes for everyone involved. Why this matters, and where the proof comes from. The thread we're following is stitched together from court filings made
about whatever contacts or bridges he may be burning, just shows that he's in tune with what the public thinks, and that's his first priority, as opposed to
public cached press releases and screenshots that social trackers saved before they were deleted, and social media edits that users flagged and archived. I'll be careful with language. This is a reconstruction based on what's been reported and circulated, not a verdict. But the pattern is clear. Shelter turned into distance, and distance exposed a legal oddity in the paperwork that could let one side speak if the other publicly disowns them. When Harry and Meghan left the UK amid headlines and security concerns, they didn't just walk into anonymity. They walked into the kind of private sanctuary money and influence can buy. From the reports that circulated, Tyler Perry's Beverly Hills home became more than a guest house. It functioned as a refuge, a private base where the couple could regroup away from palace scrutiny. That setup matters because it converted a casual hospitality into an intimate, high-trust relationship, and when trust deepens, it changes how stories get kept or told. We've seen clips and screenshots, press posts, celebratory Instagram moments, and a public christening announcement that identified Perry as a chosen and cherished figure in the Sussex circle. The most notable public signal was the godfather title reportedly given to Perry for the couple's child. In public branding terms, that's huge. A godparent is family, a publicly signaled loyalty that anchors narratives about protection, gratitude, and personal alliance. For a celebrity like Perry, who built a brand around safety, uplift, and loyalty, being publicly named in that role amplified both his goodwill and his perceived stake in the family story. But intimacy also breeds exposure. Guests who stay in private homes share more than sleeping quarters. They exchange conversations, strategy sessions, late-night calls. That degree of access creates a store of memories and records that can be priceless and combustible if relationships sour. The hint of this dynamic is what makes the Perry connection consequential. It wasn't only emotional or social. It was transactional in the sense that access converted into shared history, and shared history often comes with paper trails, emails, phone records, drafts, and photos that can be archived and produced. It's important to stress one thing. Accounts of warmth, gifts, and public gratitude are drawn from social posts and synced media that were live at one point. Those same posts later vanished in some places, and that disappearance is precisely what seeded suspicion. The setup, a benefactor turned godfather, hosting a famous couple, created a narrative arc that gave Perry not only proximity, but potential leverage. Whether he chooses to use it is another question. For now, what's relevant? The closeness was public, the signals were loud, and when signals get scrubbed, people begin to look for receipts. A relationship's dynamics can remain hidden for years until a single legal filing reframes everything. That's the pivot in the story. The lawsuit that landed on Tyler Perry's desk. According to publicly circulated reports, an actor filed a high-value civil suit alleging a toxic workplace and abusive behavior. That kind of allegation doesn't just affect the defendant. It ripples outward, tainting allies and anyone whose name appears nearby. In the court of public opinion, association matters as much as culpability. When the lawsuit surfaced, the immediate reaction, at least in the social media and PR orbit around the Sussexes, was notable for what it didn't include. Instead of an immediate public statement or a defensive message, observers logged a different action. Content that had once celebrated Perry was quietly removed or edited. Photos, caption posts, and a press release that named Perry in relation to the family reportedly disappeared or were replaced. Those deletions were captured by trackers and archived before they could vanish completely, which is why we still have a timeline showing celebration, then erasure. From a narrative standpoint, that sequence, warm public praise followed by near-instant digital removal after an allegation, is combustible. It flips the story from someone who helped to someone who must be distanced. Why would a team erase positive signals? There are straightforward PR reasons. Brands pivot fast to contain contagion. But there are legal and reputational reasons, too. Removing associative content reduces the optics of endorsement, and optics are everything for public-facing enterprises. Critically, the suit itself, regardless of its merits, raised a different kind of exposure. It spotlighted who is close enough to be affected. If Tyler Perry had been a refuge and a strategic advisor, then any accusation against him suddenly carries reputational risk for those who publicly aligned with him. That explains the scramble. Teams who manage public figures often react preemptively to protect commercial deals, partner relationships, and narrative control, sometimes before answers are available. Again, we're describing the sequence reported in media and archived social posts. Allegation, rapid social media distancing, archival screenshots, and a flurry of online commentary. The legal filing became a catalyst that tested loyalties, PR playbooks, and, as you'll see in the next section, the small print that governs what guests can say when the music stops. Here's the twist that pushes this from gossip into legal drama: the confidentiality agreements reportedly signed by guests at the Perry residence. NDAs and confidentiality clauses are staples of celebrity hospitality, but one clause people are pointing at is unusual in its specificity. Sources circulating screenshots claim the agreement included a provision: if one party publicly disowns or disavows the other, the non-breaching side gains the right to disclose context to protect their reputation. In plain English, if you erase me, I may be allowed to tell my side. If true, that clause changes the calculus entirely. NDAs usually silence. They rarely create a conditional key to unlock speech. A carefully worded carve-out like this can give someone legal cover to respond publicly if they're publicly cut loose. It's not an automatic get-out-of-court-free card. There are wiggle rooms, interpretations, and enforceability tests, but it lines up a powerful option: talk under the shield of a contractual right rather than under the risk of breach. Legally speaking, a few realities matter. First, the exact language is everything. Disownment has to be defined. What counts as a public disowning? Is a deleted Instagram post enough, or does the statement need to be explicit? Second, proof matters. The person asserting the right would need to demonstrate that the other side's actions met the contract's threshold. Third, even with a clause, the discloser must avoid violating other laws. Defamation, privacy, and third-party rights can limit what they can say. From a strategic perspective, though, the clause is a nuclear deterrent. If Perry believes his name was scrubbed in bad faith, and if his agreement permits response, he could step into a sit-down interview and frame his narrative as defensive rather than vengeful. That flips the battleground. He isn't a gossiping former friend. He's a protected party exercising his contract rights. Producers and networks see gold in that setup: exclusivity, high ratings, and a story that promises novel revelations because the person speaking has documented access. Once social signals change, perception shifts fast. The moment a public champion's name disappears from a curated feed, audiences and sponsors read it as more than housekeeping. They read it as intention. That's the PR problem the Sussex brand reportedly faced when Tyler Perry's mentions and photos started disappearing. The immediate reaction from brand teams, according to the pattern observers archived, was a push to flood the channels with lifestyle content: recipes, wellness posts, pastel grids, anything to reset the conversation from scandal to serenity. That reaction is textbook damage control. Drown the story in benign content, hope the algorithm buries controversy under consistent brand messaging, and reassure partners that the product or podcast is still safe to back. But PR spins can only do so much when the underlying signal suggests erasure. Sponsors and fashion houses watch optics closely. If a partner sees a risk of association that could harm their image, They pause campaigns, and that pause quickly becomes a headline. Brand X pauses campaign with Y. Once commerce pauses, the reputational cost moves from abstract to concrete. There's a second dimension here: narrative coherence. Meghan's public brand has been constructed around empowerment, loyalty, and authenticity. If constituent actions, especially towards someone who arguably helped in a crisis, start to look transactional, that undermines the core story. Critics will say actions speak louder than mission statements, and audiences are swift to call out perceived hypocrisy. The archive of deleted posts becomes a narrative device. It tells a story of celebration followed by erasure, and the sequence implicitly invites questions about motive. Where does this go from here? There are 3 realistic scenarios, each with very different consequences. First, silence holds. Perry keeps his counsel, files remain private, and both sides attempt damage control without dramatic disclosures. That outcome preserves a degree of reputational status quo for everyone. The suit proceeds as a distinct legal matter. The Sussex rebrand continues, and archival intrigue simmers, but never explodes. This is low drama and high caution, legally safe but narratively unsatisfying for networks chasing exclusives. Second, measure disclosure. Perry could use the contractual carve-out, if enforceable, to set the record straight in a carefully negotiated interview or written statement. This option allows him to frame his narrative as a defensive protection of reputation rather than an opportunistic revenge. It would be messy and expensive, but controlled. The payoff is a chance to rebut erasure publicly and to influence how the public remembers the shelter that was offered. For the Sussexes, it would be a reputational hit but potentially containable if they respond with evidence or legal countermeasures. Third, scorched media. Perry goes full public with documents, voice notes, and detailed accounts, provoking legal battles over defamation and injunctions. That would be the most destructive scenario, to personal relationships and to commercial brands. Courts would sort through conflicting claims, and public opinion would fracture. Networks would feast on the content, but long-term damage could be irreversible for some careers and brands.